All
Nice.
right, we're loud enough. Speakers are working.
Nice. Point. Yeah,
What's up, Albert? How are you?
I'm great, thank you. And how are you?
I'm great.
Excellent.
Welcome, everybody. All right, success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. If you love what you're doing, you will be successful. And there's lots of little different things in this business. So we sat down last week, and there's lots of different niches in real estate, right? You have first-time home buyers, you have sellers, you have developers. There's a lot of different things. So if you're really interested in one, hone in on that because you're going to be a lot more successful working on that thing that you like. One of the things my father, as he got into the business, absolutely loved doing was first-time home buyers. He had this logo, like the trademark, stop paying rent, buying is cheaper than renting. And he worked, had boots in the flea market and focused all in on working with first-time home buyers. And you could tell the passion when he was sitting down with somebody and scribbling like crazy, doing a pre-qualification and going over the roadmap on how somebody who thought they could never buy a house could actually buy it. It just gave him energy, right? So what makes you happy, right? What niche in this market you find really interested, because you're going to work a lot harder on that thing, right? So you got to find happiness is the key to success. Tell me something good. What's one good thing that happened this past week? Anyone want to participate? Mark had a closing. Good job.
Nice.
Teresa, you have a niche that you're looking forward and motivated to pursue. That's cool. You got through maybe an appraisal on a house that you were a little concerned with, and they only flagged the electric box where you just had to put the cover on it, right? They didn't flag the roof. So you're over the hump there. Anyone else? Anyone on the Zoom?
Did two doors presentation.
That's right. You did 2 doors presentations. How'd they go?
Good.
You like to do things in bunches, apparently. All right. I have a feeling Lorraine is walking in the office as we speak. Is this Lorraine? No. All right. Well, congrats to Lorraine, selling 448 Coolidge Street. Every which way. What's up? The worrier she is, every which way, she felt like the deal was dying, and it just went as smooth as it could go. So, congratulations to her. And she wound up getting both sides of that as well. Joseph listed 19 Parkview Circle. We'll talk. Well, actually, I took out that open house slide. How'd that open house go? It was nuts, right?
It was nuts. Thursday we had 22 from 6:30 to 7:30, and then Sunday was another 30 on the dot groups. Very few showings in between, because when you get to that level, and there is someone that lives there, you just can't. Buyers agents don't understand, and they're just trying to get their buyers in. You can't accommodate 30 different showings in the course of a few days with a house that isn't on a lockbox. The homeowner's gonna have a stroke. And these, agents and Beth Page and pushy, trying to get in. But I thought it was more than fair to say, okay, I got Thursday 6:30 to 7:30, Sunday 1 to 3, and then we also did some midday showings Friday in a block, and that was it. And now we have 8 offers. Looks like it's gonna go for 740 to 745 on a 699 house. And I think we're gonna get some more people in today. Everybody's yelling at me, and I'm making it TOM, because how many offers do you need? That you don't need more than 8. $40,000 over ask, 45,000 over ask. So what is the benefit to keep showing it? And they don't really want to do the showing because they want to leave. So it's me that has to go there. I mean, get out of here. So anyway, the other thing I learned, so I told you that I did the Sunday one and then another one Monday night, which was a really good thing for a busy open house, because you can come back tomorrow. It was Saturday and then a Sunday early morning one. When I do the weeknight one, I won't do a Thursday and Sunday again, I don't think. Because MLS, when it has the open houses, it only shows the next one on the sheet, on the realtor sheet. You have to go to the open house section to see all of them, right? So it was a little too close, because I had people calling me on Thursday. We can't get in. I wanted, but we can't go tonight. Please, anytime this weekend. I'm like, well, what about Sunday between 1 and 3? That's perfect. What time? No, it's the open house. And they didn't realize it was an open house. So I probably would do like Tuesday and Saturday or Tuesday.
They are on the public sites, but yeah,
The public site shows
the
it.
Matrix shows it a little differently now.
Yeah. I pulled up. Lorraine worked it for me. I had something going on and maybe it was my birthday. I don't know, something. And I said, I'll practice. I just run over and just show face, and I pulled up to the line. I don't know, she's panicking. I'm gonna have to stay. It was good.
We all know about Spark, October 7th through 9th. Here's your speakers. So if you are interested in going, go to WhiteGoodEvents.com. You'll learn more. I took out a few slides because I think it was getting a little too repetitive. So there's how you register, and it's at Universal Studios this year. Facebook group, if you're not on the National White Affiliate Sales Associates, join. If you're not on our closed Facebook group, join. If you're not on our WhatsApp chat, join. And I think everyone here is on all those things, or at least the WhatsApp and our company page. If you know anyone looking to join, let us know. And as a result, you could get 10% of our company dollar. Again, should not be your primary focus. But if you run into somebody that either doesn't have a license and wants to get their license, or does have their license and you think that might be a good fit, pass over a name and number. We'll give them a chat, and we'll see if we can make that work and give a little incentive for you to do so. All right, let's talk market absorption rate. So Farmingdale, 1 month exactly. So you have 28 homes currently on the market. Over the last 30 days, 28 homes went under contract. Would we classify that as a seller's market? Yeah. Bethpage 2.8, so a little higher, but still considered a seller's market. Copeg 1.6. And Belmore 2.6. But even you look at Bethpage and Belmore 2.8 and 2.6, look at the average days on market. So the homes that are going on the market, are selling relatively fast.
They either go into contract or they sit around.
That's it. And I don't know if you've seen some of the videos I made, but I like to say there's the tale of two listings, right? Some of them are moving super fast. Open houses have lines and buyer's agents calling a listing agent begging to get in. And then others are sitting. So even more of a reason to show value as a buyer's agent. And average prices, they're all relatively the same. So national headlines don't tell a local story. So tell your local story. Newsday posts a lot of stuff. Sometimes I'll literally just copy and paste the Newsday article, put it in ChatGPT, and say, give Newsday credit, don't plagiarize, and write a blog post for me. And boom, it's like that. And then you could use that blog post as a potential video. So what's one thing we could do and leverage that, right? Let's put together a blog post, make a video about it, copy and paste that onto your Facebook. Those are a lot of activities just from doing one thing. So how can we work smarter, not harder? And then I used to listen to a podcast, I forget who it was, but he said, why not work smarter and harder? You get a lot more done that way. We had 2 doors presentations. Keep that up. How'd those doors presentations go? How'd it end? You felt pretty good about them?
Yeah, just waiting for the call.
Awesome. Wednesday webinars coming up, creating a Weichert buyer consultation presentation. So that's on the 20th, which is tomorrow. Who sees value in having some sort of consultation with a buyer? Everyone should raise their hand there, right? And I've said this to you before, as you're talking to that potential buyer, you're going to do a different version of a buyer consultation. Some people say you have 2 different buyers, right? One is on the information gathering stage, right? They want the hand holding. They want the full presentation. They want to know the process because they never went through it again. And then others, dude, I'm already pre-approved. I just need a house. That we call transactional buyer. So when you do these buyer consultations and you practice them, you're going to have a few different versions for different buyers you have. And the hand-holding information gathering stage buyer, you're going to hopefully get them into the office. You're going to chat with them. You're going to go over all that stuff. And then the transactional buyer, you're going to try to set expectations that you want to meet with them and go over your value. No, I'm just interested in looking at the house. I just need inventory. I just want the right house. I already know what I'm doing. I understand that, Sal. But what I want to show you is what I'm going to do behind the scenes to get your deal accepted. and a few things that you could do to put yourself in the best position to do so. Can we chat for 10 minutes? I think you could get the agreement from those kind of buyers as well with that kind of pitch. And success track. So Alessandra's going to be joining that. Did you schedule it yet?
Yeah, I did it.
September 4th, I think, or it's the
Yeah.
beginning of September. Okay. And you registered for it? Good job. I think we all should. You too, Teresa. So it's a 1 hour action-packed overview. So it's not fast track. It's a quick, overview of Weichert tools and systems, how to get your business kind of going. It'll let you look at your business a little different way of what you want to do as far as your business plan. And it's got a motivational component to it as well. So this guy, Sean Stovall, does it. And he's, you talk about, happiness to find success rather than the other way around. He loves his job. You're going to see that, Alessandra. He absolutely loves it. Weichert Agent Success Hub. Have you guys and girls have been joining and looking at the YouTube videos as we post them? So you can always go and look at them again. 2 videos that I think in particular are super helpful is preparing the PTA step 1 and preparing the PTA step 2. It actually goes into how to go into Matrix and find your comps. How do you look and find 6-month-old comps? How do you look and find 12-month? How do you look and find under contract? So you could gather all that data to complete your price trend analysis. And then step 2 actually talks about putting it into the Excel sheet, how to print out the customer deliverable, how to adjust the graph to make it relevant for our average sales prices. So I think those are 2 videos that are pretty successful. Joseph did a lot on MLS, the Matrix. So definitely check it out. I think there's some good stuff there. And I would tell you that it might spark, again, some ideas for your business plan. And then you can reach out to Joseph or I and say, hey, I watched the PTA part 1, part 2. Can I meet with you? I have a couple of questions about it. And then we can have a really productive meeting rather than, doing some elementary stuff. Some office inventory. We know how to find it. Go onto Matrix, scroll down to office inventory. You can find it. And then here's some rental inventory. Mark, you have that rental available in Mineola? Okay, so that's done. There's a 2-bedroom on 125 Elizabeth Street for $27.75. And that's something that you guys can try to do too. So landlord representation, not that it's easy, but it's a listing, right? So listing agents last. So maybe focus on maybe how you do landlord representation. And if you have a rental available, I can help you. I can talk to you about the vetting process and how we do background checks, credit checks. It's really easy to do through Rent Spree, which is a vendor of Matrix. It's Joe, do you know? Text Maria later. Or now, or whenever you want. All right, so everyone's talking about summer's over, right? There's probably 3/4 of the people here say summer's over, and then maybe a quarter that's saying no, we still have a few more weeks, but we do have a full market coming up, right? So let's just talk about that a little bit. So summer's winding down, people starting to getting set to return to their normal routines. I know I am looking forward to getting more of a normal routine. So now's the time to catch up on what's going on in the market as they make their plans for the fall. What's happening in the fall, or what's everyone expecting in the fall as far as the real estate market goes?
Rate cuts.
There it sounds on the Zoom. Yeah, so there's a big expectation that the Fed's going to reduce the rate, which is as a result is going to bring mortgage rates down. And
You
there's
can bet on it, just so you know.
Yeah.
Where do I bet on that?
Like Robinhood has it, and even some of like this app Kashi, you could actually bet on when rate cuts are gonna happen and stuff, and how much it's gonna cut.
So I wouldn't bet to make some money. Just work the market, all right? Work the full market.
I'm gonna bet on it by trying to add a couple listings between now and October. That's
Yeah.
all I'll bet on it.
So are there tons of people out there that are anticipating this and waiting for this? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I'll tell you from my open house, from the last 2 weeks, first Hitchcock and then Parkview, there's been it was noticeable to me, shift in the buyers coming and you haven't seen the young couples. I mean, look, whoever buys the house buys the house. I want to throw that out there. But there just weren't a lot of young couples. It was all older couples, you know. I'm not young, and most of the buyers looking at houses were older than me. But what did you notice that at Massapequa?
A lot of parents shopping for their kids.
Parent shopping, but you get a lot of like multi-generational houses or I'm coming from Queens and
Yeah.
I need the better schools.
Yeah.
This past 2 weeks, I noticed that shift, and in talking to people, oh yeah, you know, we're trying to find a house before the rates drop. And I think there's this expectation from people who have been on the sideline a little bit. If I get a house now, we'll close in fact, the new Farmingdale buyer has an October 15th on or about date on their offer. We're gonna change it. But their plan, I think, is to try to float the rates as long as they can until the rate cut happens and then lock in. So I think as much as there's people waiting for that to happen, a lot of those buyers are already out there.
When rates were high, there was a Instagram saying that was going around quite a bit. You know, date the rate, marry the house, and it didn't really pan out that well because rates stayed high for a very long time.
How many years now?
But now that might be relevant, you know. So that's happening, right? So what are you going to do as we hit the full market? So give them local sales figures. Talk about what Joseph just talked about. Homes sold, days on market, price trends. Then add your own insight. I always like storytelling. So data tells a very important, you know, that is important, but you have to do the storytelling as well. That's how people really understand the data that you're referring to. So add your own insight to that as well. Could you do a weekly blog post about that? Yeah, I think that would actually be a really good idea. At the very least, monthly. And then I prefer you to do video on that too. Jeff Grebe, owner of Weicker Realtors Advantage in Knoxville, Tennessee. Their top 30 office every single year. He has some comments regarding that, so we'll play this. It's a short one.
People feel like that it's more of a buyer's market now than it was earlier in the year or last year. So I was studying the numbers, and honestly, that couldn't be further from the truth. In January, 51% of the homes in Knox County were selling for list price or above. But if we look at the last 3 months, in May, it was 65%. In June, it was 68%. And in August, 66% of the homes were selling at list price or above. So you see, we're really in a strong seller's market still. The reason? We don't have enough inventory. Now, granted, sales over the last 2 months were down 21 to 29% over last year. There's fewer homes being sold, but there's a lot fewer coming on the market. This is Jeff Grebe, and that is my market minute.
That's a simple video you guys can do, right? So there's kind of a few takeaways from this post. But that's not hard. You know, that's an iPhone sitting at a desk, just reading some numbers.
So
all right, so wait now, buy now or wait for lower rates. Here's a trade-off. So to Joseph's point, you know, mortgage rates dropped to the lowest point this year. While not huge, it reignites hopes that they'll go lower, right? There's an expectation, and Sal is saying it's a certainty that rates are going to go down. Most experts project the mid to low 6 range through 2026. And that's a perception that is helpful as well, because when it starts with a 7, it seems high, right? All of a sudden we get into the 6s, there's going to be kind of a perception that they're lower as well. And it's a real number. So we look at the trend from Q1, Q1 of 2024. You know, they kind of been hovering in those, you know, high 6s, touching 7. And if you look at the forecast over, you know, fourth quarter 2026, Fannie Mae forecast has you at 6%. The MBA forecast 6.4. Wells Fargo 6.6. So, you know, let's root for the Fannie Mae forecast 6%, because you know, the magic number is 6%. So National Association of Realtors says if it reaches 6%, 5.5 million more households could afford the median home sales price. Roughly 550,000 people would buy a home within the next 24 to 18 months. What happens if there's a buyer frenzy out there? rates go down as a buyer frenzy. Prices are going to go up. So if you're a buyer out there, to Joseph's point, should you wait? You know, that's a conversation to have. And maybe there is the right timing, which could be now. So here's a trade-off. Lower rates equals more buyers, right? So there's going to be more competition out there. There's going to be fewer choices, and home prices are going to continue to rise. National Association of Realtors says home buyers wishing for lower mortgage rates may eventually get their wish, but for now, they'll have to decide whether it's better to wait or jump into the market. So these are all conversations that we can have during our buyer consultation. You could talk about the trade-offs. You can have a slide on the forecast. You can have, you know, a slide like, whoops, going the wrong way. Like this, right? More rates, more buyers, more competition. Have actual, you know, illustrations on what exactly that means. So unique window of opportunity, you know, is probably now, right? Inventory is up. There's more choices. Price growth has slowed down. More realistic pricing. You have the tail of two listings, right? So there are some opportunities out there. You may have more room to negotiate, and you could get a better deal. Buyers who are holding off on lower mortgage rates may be missing a key opening in the market. You know, would you rather 7% and be able to negotiate 6% off a list? Or do you want 6%? You got to go, you know, 50 over. You know, that's a conversation and a math equation that, you know, might be worth looking into. Yes.
Refinance mortgage. Let's say you get it now at 6% and then the rates are dropping within a year from now.
Yeah, right away. So there's no prepayment penalties on mortgages, conventional loans and FHA loans. There's no seasoning requirements on the mortgage. So you could do it right away. What the sort of devil's advocate is, you have closing costs. So a loan officer would have to figure out, and it's like a term they use, the benefit to the borrower. And it has to have a benefit. So to redo all those closing costs for a lower rate, sometimes you need like a full percentage point lower in order to really have a benefit. And then it's an equation. How many years do you plan on living in the property? And then, you know, your savings over the course of X amount of years, that's your break even. So with all your additional closing costs, maybe it takes you 6 years at the lower payment to break even. Do you plan on staying there for 10, 15, 20 years? Or is this a starter, you know, a house that, you know, in 2-3 years, you could see yourself selling? So maybe it doesn't make sense to refinance in that case. So there's no waiting period, but you got to calculate the benefit to the borrower to do the refinance. So rates aren't expected to hit 6% this year, unless we look at the Fannie Mae forecast. But when they do, you'll have to deal with more competition as the buyers jump back in. If you want less pressure, more negotiation power, the opportunity is already here. It might not last for long. It all depends on what happens in the economy next. Let's talk about what's happening in our area, whether it makes sense to make your move now before everyone else does. As we went over this material, it's not like you're trying to sell them on something that doesn't exist. This all makes sense, right? So have these conversations with these buyers, and they might land on, no, we're going to wait, which is fine, but it should be calculated. It should be by design. So those buyers that are thinking the grass is going to be real green at the end of 2020, where are we now? At the end of 2026, maybe it's not. You know, maybe you'll be at a disadvantage with the more competition and the potential rise in home prices. And there's no developments, right? There's not a ton of, you know, 1,000-unit households coming in Long Island. You have little developments of 10 houses here, maybe spec houses here, but there's not more homes for the most part that's going to be on the market. So there's going to be more competition because it's just not, you know, there's not new development happening on a massive scale. Any questions on any of that? No? Who's excited to do a video on that? Lorraine folded her hands. Lorraine's probably sick to her stomach right now. We're dealing with something right now from this morning. All good things though. It'll be what it'll be. All right. So I wanted to go over converting in an open house. We've done a lot of things on the importance of open houses, right? We've done a lot of things on, you know, how we could leverage all these before steps on activities we could do leading up to an open house. We haven't really focused on when somebody walks through that door, how are we going to put ourselves in the best position to convert them into working with us, convert them into a client. So that's kind of what I wanted to go over today, is more of the during steps. Before we do that, if you're not going to make calls, so we talk about doing things you want to do, right? Being successful by finding things you're happy doing. If you're not going to make the calls and prospect, if you just say it's not in me, I'm not picking up the phone and just cold calling, I'm not doing all these prospecting activities. I know I should. I look in the mirror, I'm disappointed, but it's not in me. So then you should be going all in on open houses. Like that should be your focus. And if you're going all in open houses, you can do a lot of them. Weekdays, twilights, I don't care. 2 people show up. Those 2 people could be clients. What else are you doing for an hour in the evening? If you're not making calls an hour, why not do an hour open house on Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night? So you should go all in on open houses any chance you can. So maybe host 2 or 3 a week. Weekdays, weekends, daytime, evening, be creative. Just do it. When you're doing that, maybe just have a goal of 30 homes leading up to the open house. I'm not making 100 calls. I'm not doing voicemail drops. I'm not doing all this stuff, but I'm going to knock on 30 homes and hand this beautiful neighborhood packet. If we do 2 to 3 open houses a week, that's 60 to 90 visits per week based on how often you're doing open houses. That could create a lot of activity. So what would be in a neighborhood packet? So I want to be different. And we're going to talk about why we want to be different, but we want to be different. What would be in a neighborhood packet? A property flyer with contact info, QR codes, a flyer with QR codes linking to the listing website, property video tour, instant home valuation tool, the buyer guide, seller guide. So we all have these booklets. Take a few before you leave. You hand them out to your buyers and sellers. We have a digital copy as well. So it's a domain you could make a QR code for, and it's your home buyer and seller guide. There's a lot of good information in there. Local market snapshot. So why not put together a little bit of information wherever your open house is located and put together some data on what's going on in the market. What other homes are on the market? Business card or, information printed on the flyer. And there's other things you can put in there too. If you see something working or see something you want to add to, you can do that. So as you're door knocking, deliver the neighborhood packet in person. Use a simple script. Hi, I'm hosting an open house. Invite at 123 Main Street on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Here's some info. I'd love to see you there. If you're doing that, it positions you as a neighborhood expert. So maybe your weekday open houses, and I kind of like this idea. Pitch it in a way where it's a special open invite for neighbors. Okay, as you're doing it, pitch it where it's a special open invite for neighbors. I didn't call it an open house. I called it an open invite. And what that might create is a pattern interrupt. And we're going to talk about what a pattern interrupt is in a second. But it could be a good tool and just a different angle to actually get neighbors to come through to those open houses. So the before steps are super important. They're crucial for having a successful open house. It should not be overlooked, but for the purposes of this, we're going to actually talk about when we're meeting with these people and actually dialogue with them. But go to the open house playbook to get more information and a lot more stuff on those before steps. But we're going to kind of dig into the during steps. So if you're a home buyer, you go to an open house, what would you want your experience to look like? Would you want to be forced to sign in immediately? People do it. There's an expectation, but they don't even know you. You're literally a stranger and you're saying, put in your information, put in your home address. I always try to get a home address. Give me your phone number and your email before you even met. It was a simple hello, come over here, sign in. Maybe we don't want to do that. Would you want them to escort you and kind of be with you for the entire tour? I would say no. You don't want them breathing down your neck. Do you want to be sold, right? We talk about, Joseph has talked about before, somebody spends a Sunday afternoon walking into a furniture store and immediately, the salesperson goes to them and say, can I help you with something? And what does 9 out of 10 people say with that question? I'm just looking, right? Do you really think that somebody wasted their Sunday afternoon in the summer because they're just looking? No, but they don't want to be sold. They want to have the space to look through, and eventually they're going to need that salesperson. They're not walking out with a couch unless they engage with a salesperson, but that's not what they need right now. Right now, they need some space. They need some time to kind of browse and get acclimated with the furniture there. And then there is going to be a right time for that salesperson to come on in and say, "Hey, Patty, do you have any questions on this couch? You've been sitting on it for the last, 12 minutes." So there is a time, but when do we approach them? When do we ask those questions? And that's something that you're going to have to kind of read the room a little bit, read the open house guest, and decide when you're going to do that. So the answer is typically no to all these questions. They don't want to sign in right away. They don't want you to breathe down their neck and just talk throughout the whole tour and feature dump. And they don't want to be sold right away. Hopefully they do eventually want to deal with you and want to engage with you and have questions. And that's your opening to hopefully build that rapport that's going to turn them into a client. So the goal for the open house should be to be noticeably different and provide a better customer experience to your guests. If they're going to 3-4 open houses on a Saturday or Sunday, the goal is for them to walk into your open house and for it to feel different and better. And how do we do that? There's lots of different ways to do that, but how do we do that? So I mentioned pattern interrupts before. So has anyone heard of that term before? No? So a pattern interrupt is a sales technique where you deliberately break the prospect's expected flow of conversion or interaction to grab their attention. You basically reset in their thinking, and it opens them up to a new perspective. So let's dig into that a little more. The human brain runs on autopilot much of the time, especially routine situations. So if they're going to open house after open house and they've been shopping, they have an expectation that they're going to walk in, they're going to sign in, and you're going to do your spiel, and then you're going to maybe escort them around. And they just know how it works, right? Because they've done it before. So they know the typical sales pitches at a typical open house. Prospects often expect a standard approach, so they mentally prepare to respond to quick rejections. Like they're walking in trying to say, "No, I'm just looking. Leave me alone." So not interested, send me an email. I'm working with an agent. They'll use all these excuses to kind of get away from you. So the pattern interrupt jolts them out of their autopilot mode, forcing them to pause, pay attention, and re-engage with you more concisely. I wrote that too. So how to use pattern interrupt. So you want them to be effective, right? So you got to stay authentic. It should match your personality and prospect's tone. I think Albert is a natural pattern interrupt. And it works really well sometimes, and maybe sometimes it doesn't, but
that's his new rap name, by the way, little pattern interrupt.
yeah. Do you want to be mediocre for 10 guests? Or would you rather be really highly effective and personable and build rapport with 3 or 4 of them and maybe not the other 6? I think we'd rather be going 4 out of 10 rather than, mediocre for all 10. What's a good average baseball average, batting average?
These days, 280, 300.
300?
Rock star.
Yeah, 300's also
decent, like very good is 280.
Right. So the best professional players in the world that are getting paid millions and millions and millions of dollars a year,
1 out of 4.
if they're hitting, 2.5 out of 10, they're considered a good player.
Yeah.
So how do we use these pattern interrupts to maybe get 2 or 3 out of 10? We don't need to be mediocre for all 10. So you got to stay authentic. Again, Albert is a natural pattern interrupter, and that's him. That's authentic. It's got to be relevant. So the interrupt should be connected to your sales conversation, not just shock them, right? Don't ask some wild question that totally just shocks them. It's got to be related to what we do. You got to figure out how to do a smooth transition. So once you have their attention, pivot quickly to your value proposition. So if you're just going to kind of interrupt their way of thinking, how does it relate to providing good service and what you could provide as far as value? And use it sparingly. You don't want to use 3 or 4 of them where they're, what's up?
Okay.
Oh.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah. So overuse could feel gimmicky. Like this guy is just, a gimmick, What were we gonna say?
I was gonna say that the way you do your open houses over the past year is a natural having interrupt, because you have something to speak about when you come in. They're, you sign in, go to the table. No. Listen, you're gonna notice notes all around the house. Here is a rating survey, whatever, and you're gonna have question or information on it. Take it with you, go around, notice the notes, you have any questions, I'm here. But that is a whole different aspect of an open house than what they've been to the 3 before they got to you.
And that was a perfect segue for the next slide. Creating a noticeably different open house is a pattern interrupt in itself. It's exactly what you just said. So how do we make it different? So we're gonna talk about the setup. And I took a picture of myself and I put it to ChatGPT and said, take my photo and make it look into a really exciting person regarding the setup of an open house. And I look scary there, but I just left it alone. It's amazing what ChatGPT does.
You buy a house from this.
Commercial, and it's sponsored by Wickard.
Yeah. All right, so
GDT's gonna take over the real estate business.
that's a conversation for another time. I still think I have my full career. Will my kids be in the business? Who knows? But you got plenty of time to make a lot of money in real estate. So signage, have more open house signs, flags, etc. You want to be more than your competition. Joseph uses those nice flags. It's different, right? Your display. So when they walk in, have an amazing display. It's supposed to look like your storefront, right? You're setting up your storefront for the next hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it might be. You should absolutely do those description label cards. That should be something you do without fail on every single one. If you're going to be doing 2 to 3 open houses a week, there's a good chance you're going to be doing the same house over and over again. You could reuse those description cards. So use the setup throughout the house. Many times it answers questions before they ask. And you use QR codes. So if you're doing videos, use QR codes throughout as well. And one of the things that I found very interesting, I was watching a video on open houses while I was kind of just doing some research. And somebody was saying how they do videos that are educational pieces. So they'll find something unique about the house. And the example he uses is the heating system. And I think we talked about this last week in the sales meeting as well. Or maybe the roof, how it's a 40-year architectural roof. Do a video about what types of roofs there are, how there's different, types. Some roofers will do a second layer. It takes out the age of the roof and it lowers the age expectancy. This particular house has a 4-year-old, 40-year architectural roof on a single layer. Whatever you could brag about, talk about it, kind of an educational piece to it on types of roofs, and then how this particular house has, the Mercedes-Benz of roofs, or maybe the appliances. Maybe the seller put together these really, professional upgraded appliances. Talk about the cost of repairs and how they don't make them like they used to. But this particular house has all, Wolf and Bosch appliances, which is going to save them a lot of time in the future, whatever it might be. And then create QR codes to those videos. They also would create QR codes, and if it was posted on Instagram, have a little Instagram label to it. And when they look at it, there's a lot more conversion on people actually scanning the QR code when they see what platform it's on, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, whatever that might be. Handouts. So have your neighborhood packet you give to guests with great and valuable material. Not just MLS sheet. Here's an MLS sheet. Have some more material than that. So let's talk signage. Minimum of 8 directional signs, 2 balloons or balloon alternatives. Who knows? Who's got some ideas on maybe an alternative to balloons? Big signs. If you're not, maybe like 4 or 5 open house signs on the actual house. So you don't have 2 balloons on there, but there's literally 4 of them.
That call is not really the example we should be using as somebody who's great at open houses and good at them. But he doesn't do all the things, although Alexander saw me on Sunday and that was a half-assed attempt. But he puts 8 signs out because that's what you do for Weichert. He puts all 8 almost all 8 in front of the house. It looks really, it pops.
front of the house?
Yeah, it's like 8 of them, and then a couple of key spots. Yeah, I put out 10 signs for every open house, 8 of them are right in front. But if you notice outside, you notice, I had like 4 in front of the house, plus those 2 feather flags. I hate balloons. I'll do them on a main road, but when they're bouncing around, you need the balloon bag. But if you're doing all that other stuff, it's gonna be just as eye catching.
What about getting a tent or setting up a table? Is that different as they walk up to it? You know, it might have the feeling of one of those mega open houses.
So,
Get a kid to, why not partner up? You know, as you're door knocking, you see, if you see, that's a great idea. If you see a bunch of bikes in the driveway, knock, 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 I'm doing an open house, special invite to neighbors, come check it out. By the way, I don't know how old your kids are, but I see open lemonade stands all over town, you know, all summer long. If you wanted to, you know, sit down and chaperone and have your kids set up a lemonade stand, I would welcome it. I think that's an awesome idea.
thank you.
I'm gonna put it on a slide for the next one. Be creative. That's a way of being creative.
People have the yellow tickets.
Mhm.
So the raffle tickets.
The raffle tickets, yeah.
Like, I give away to visitors.
Bottle of wine, raffle for a bottle of wine. I like bottles of wine because for $10 you could get a bottle of wine.
Okay.
And the perceived value is gonna be higher than that. You need to get a $10 bottle of sparkling wine.
Starbucks.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And they'll be more apt to write the correct information.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm
So-
like, this is like real eye catching. How can I set it up? Not just signing in, but like, here, make sure you take a raffle ticket. We're giving you a giveaway at the end of our open houses and, you know, I don't know, just something different.
And then all of a sudden you do a bunch, right? And then you know, a year from now, you go to a listing appointment and they say, wait, you're the raffle girl, right? You're the raffle agent. So maybe it creates a branding identity. And is that different?
Yeah, there you go.
What if they don't want to do the raffle?
Thank you very much.
Is it still noticeably different? Absolutely.
Hey, one thing leads to another.
So be creative. And then if you just have, you know, a 6-pack of $10 bottles of wine, you have your raffles, is it easy to just duplicate and replicate? It's very
To
easy.
the office Monday through Friday, 10 to 4, to pick up your bottle of wine. They never even come, but they won.
Or hand deliver it. We talk about door knocking, and one of the questions, if you have a conversation with somebody, of saying, out of all your neighbors, who do you think would be the next person to list? If you were hand delivering that bottle of wine and they clearly met with you, you spoke to them, they're getting something, do you think they might answer that question, you know, authentically and trying to give you the best answer there? Yeah. So maybe you hand deliver that and say, you know, thanks so much. One last question. Out of all your neighbors, who do you think would be the next person to list? And if they like you, they love trying to share. You know, that person is 90 and there's a home health aide over there. This person, you know, the husband and wife are yelling all day long. They might be getting a divorce. You know, they'll help you with that stuff. So it's a good way of being creative. All right, let's talk about the display.
To
So
your point though, I probably would give out the tickets to the neighbors you met too.
free
Not
tickets.
just the open house attendees, so make it the open house raffle. Oh, and here I do a raffle at the open house, I'm gonna enter you in, here's your ticket,
Okay.
why not?
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, by the way, anybody I had a really good conversation with, they won the $10 bottle of wine, I
Right.
buy 8 of them. So I can do- Everybody won, everybody won.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, give out 6.
Yeah, that might be your business plan. They hand out bottles of wine and ask them out of all their neighbors who's going to be the next one to sell. So when they walk in that house or when they come up to that door, what's your display look like? Maybe a menu stand outside or just in front on the entry. It's 11 by 17. You could print out 11 by 17 paper, or you got 2 flyers next to each other and they fit perfectly in there. Use of flyers in my Wyckoff marketing studio with flyer holders. You see the picture above, you see some of that. Definitely have a business card stand, right? Wyckoff branded waters. I like that idea. So full disclosure, I haven't done it. But what about when you're doing your sort of 2-minute pitch and there's 2 people about to take their tour and you hand them 2 waters? Do you think Hilton thinks it's a good idea for their Diamond members, or Marriott thinks it's a good idea for their what's a Marriott? Titanium members. They do it. And does it feel, could you afford a bottle of water at the at the stand? Yeah. But when you get those 2 free waters, if you feel like you're getting something. So I like that idea. I haven't done it, but it's something that I want to incorporate. Display boards, there's really endless ideas. And what you do on a Tuesday open house doesn't mean you have to do it exactly right the same way on a Saturday. You can add to it. You can take things out. It's an evolving thing, right? Just like storefronts do things, right? They change signage, they change the umbrella color and whatever it might be. So make it different and see what you like and add to it. So there's endless ideas. The whole point is it's your storefront, so you should treat it as your storefront. Those description labels, I mean, I think they're the coolest thing in the world. And the amount of compliments I get from buyers and buyer agents is insane. It's like a conversation piece, to say the least. So it's a PowerPoint template. I could send it out to you. I'll email it out to all of you. You're literally just deleting what's there, like the staple one that's in there, and you're adding to it. So look at the property, walk through the property, see what things you could brag about. And then even little things, have questions, ask away. Do you know the area really well and you have a favorite restaurant? Put it in there. If it's close to the preserve, put it in there, whatever it might be, and put them throughout the house. Use painter's tape and tape it on the walls in all the appropriate locations. Some sellers would be okay with you leaving them there. Hey, by the way, I put these property cards. They're really descriptive. So when people walk through the property, it's basically selling them. It's all these presumptive closes that it's giving information and it's giving them questions that maybe they wouldn't ask, but they're getting that good information. Would it be okay if we left them on there during the marketing of the property? No way you could just leave them. If it's vacant, of course, you could do that as well. So it allows you to communicate with them. So we talk about how we don't want to be those agents that breathe down their neck, but you're still communicating with them even when you're not there, which is kind of cool. Answers questions before they ask. It shows you as the agent that goes above and beyond. And definitely think about using the QR codes for videos, floor plans, tax info, home valuations, even the digital copy of the buyer and seller guide, and strategically just put them throughout the house. So what might be in your packet as you're door knocking? So if you look here on the right-hand side, there's a flyer with 3 QR codes. I want to let you know I'm hosting an open house at 1 through 3 Main Street, Thursday night from 6 to 7 as a special neighbor open invite. Come down and see how your home compares. I have some QR codes of some videos and info that you should find value. Hope to see you there. And I have the buyer and selling guide, web page of the listings with photos, and get an instant valuation of your home. We could have probably 3 or 4 more of those if we had some videos, if we had some other information, if we did have a floor plan for that particular property. And I think some neighbors will use those QR codes. I absolutely think they will. What's some other ideas maybe you put on this flyer? Kind of covered it, right? So when somebody walks through, what are you going to give them? So everyone wants the MLS printout, right? That's got all the information or most of the information. Property flyer, floor plan, a flyer with QR codes, right? The same flyer, just a different version that we just showed you. Material from the marketing studio, such as top questions. I like that one. Do you guys know that flyer? Top questions. It's basically top questions a buyer should ask of their agent. And it's very thought-provoking. The open house consultation. So there's lots of flyers. So if you go to my marketing studio and you go to the print section and you hit open houses, there's a lot of flyers for that. A little pro tip, provide a custom flyer about maybe top 5 things a buyer and buyer's agent can do to get their deal accepted, right? How can we provide value and actually give them tips on how to get their deal accepted? Or maybe top 5 things buyer's agents do wrong where their buyers don't get their deal accepted. That's very provoking, right? So be creative in that too. So now you got to ask yourself what's your intro dialogue. This is kind of one of the most important things you could do. You already set yourself up as providing a different open house, which is going to be a pattern interrupt. But what kind of conversation are you going to have with them? So when a guest walks in the door, you should set the expectations for the tour. So however you want their experience to be, you want to set those expectations. And usually when people set expectations, they'll follow the plan. They'll go along for the ride. So here's an example. And again, this is going to be your intro dialogue. So you might like this a lot. You might see a different vision in your open house, but it should be by design. It should be practiced. Hi, welcome to my open house. My goal is for this to be unlike any open house you've been to, and for you to have a great customer experience. Immediately, that's different. No one else is starting with that kind of pitch. Please take this open house packet that not only has info on the home, but also very valuable information that may help you with your home buying journey. I'd like you to experience the home on your own, but I'll be available to answer any questions you may have. You will also see labels throughout the home that may answer a lot of your questions. Feel free to walk around, and before you leave, I'd like to have a brief chat and go over some required disclosures. Sound good? Okay. What do you think of that? Is it different? Who maybe has some other topics or points they would want to bring up? Do you think it would be good to talk about the house a little bit? There's no right or wrong answer. I'm just I've been at some where the agent will just throw up details of the house for 3 minutes. So you're conscious of it though.
Sometimes even you're kind of shuffling your body.
Yes. Yeah.
And like you're just trying to get away, and now the agent is like yelling up the stairs. And don't forget, there's 2 skylights and there's hardwood under the. All right, give me a minute here.
And maybe there's certain things you do want to bring up, but try to limit it to a few things that maybe they wouldn't notice. And I think those property cards are a good tool to kind of say, all right, I'm giving them that information because it's on the cards and they're going to read it.
For instance, I should have had a card on the oil tank in that house so
Yeah.
that I displayed it all the time. And I should have had, and you should have had from our speaker, a feature sheet. So when there are 10 things you want to get into the buyer's head about the house or whatever number, just make a flyer. Hey, here's some stuff you wouldn't ordinarily notice in the listing or maybe even during the tour. But the seller and I really wanted to make sure all the buyers knew about. New roof in 2019, updated boiler for 6 months, whatever that is, put it on a feature sheet.
I
I'm telling you, and not to pick on her, we talked about it already. When I was showing her listing to the buyers, Alexander was telling me all this great stuff about the house. I heard the teacher from Charlie Brown. Because it was just too much. It was like drinking water from a fire hose. It was just like, oh my God. Whereas that feature sheet, if it's a good agent, they're gonna be able to scan that as they walk through. Oh, and just so you know, there's central air that covers both floors. And when you're up on the second floor, by the way, there's a new roof here. Here's, and give them 2 copies. So it probably would have happened anyway, but the showing experience, in my opinion, is more important than the information. People decide if they're gonna buy that house with or without all that information. Your partner or spouse, you went on a date, you knew pretty quick, this is somebody I'd like to get to know better. You made that decision before you knew potentially what job they had,
The shoe size.
their family's medical history, shoe size, everything. You knew what town they lived in. You know if it was an apartment, is it a basement apartment, do you live with your parents? So people are going to decide, this is a house I could see myself living in. Then they might look for reasons to either go forward or not, and that's when that other information, so.
And that other information with the feature sheet and details could be the difference between a very aggressive offer or not. But yeah, there's a time and a place for it.
People didn't even see it, we didn't even see it probably.
Okay.
It was on the table in the kitchen.
I was trying to run away from it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, that house was,
It was a weird.
Sal always brings, and I think it's not a bad idea, those little, like, the high tables, like the kids' tables that come up higher.
Yeah,
And I think that
yeah.
in some houses helps, because then you have kind of like a docking station.
Yeah, I like that. I had one open house quite a while ago. The house was the most pristine house I was ever in. And I'm setting up, it's a shoe off house, you know. And she's like, Jared, I don't want that stuff on my countertop. And not because like it was gonna get dirty, it's just she didn't like the look of the kitchen with the stuff on the countertop.
Okay, I put it all away. Now it's time for you to leave.
No, and I said, you know, you're right. You know, so be conscious of all these things. She had a nice little table, like on the entry that did not fit all my stuff, but we made it work. So, and you know, I did one in on the water in Belmore, and it had a basement, a small basement, and the slab was sinking, but the footings were perfect. So I brought in my mason. I had him comment. He says, "Yeah, these footings are you know, it's non-structural at all. If I was going to do it, I wouldn't even break this stuff up. I would create these holes, create like a slushy cement mix. I'd put it underneath, then put it, you know, a nice straight run on top, and that's going to fix it." I put that whole quote with a very detailed description on 11 by 17 paper and put it right there. So now I'm not relying on me running down there. Oh, by the way, let me address this. Under their own kind of casual, you know, ability, they read it on their own. And then I was able to talk to them a little bit. Hey, did you see that information in the basement? Did you have any questions about it? And I'm telling you, not one buyer, well, there's one that seemed to have a real concern about it. Everyone else, oh, okay, makes sense. So be creative and address things with maybe
And
descriptions.
back to before, be authentic. People were asking me how old that roof was at that page. What was my answer? Do you remember?
You said it's old.
It was really old. It was really old. And that's a little bit of that pivot, right? Because what are they expecting the agent to say? Oh, that's all fine. Yeah, the collapsing floor. Yeah, that's normal.
Really good shape,
No
free
problem,
leaves.
it's great. Some of that's just a test to see if they can believe it.
So your open dialogue, whatever it might be, it should be by design, right? It should be practiced over and over and over again. And every house might have a unique thing to it. Maybe your opening dialogue is slightly different, but you should be able to do it with your eyes closed after, you know, a couple of bourbons pretty easily. Okay, it should just be on autopilot. And this is your first impression. It could absolutely be the difference between earning a client or not. All right, so you're gonna want to extend the conversation too. So you already did your opening dialogue. You already kind of sent them on their way. You promised them that you're not gonna breathe down their neck and have them sign in right away, or whatever you promised them. You set those expectations, but they're not getting a free pass, right? They're not walking out of that house without more conversation. So how do we spark that conversation again? So at this point, hopefully you sort of impress them a little bit and you do build some rapport. And now you're going to find an opportunity to maybe spark up a conversation. So a great way is if they ask you a question, right? If they approach you and ask you a question, that means they want to talk to you, right? Because they want an answer. So that might be a good opening where you can answer their question and then ask a question. Maybe they're walking through, they walk down into the lower level of a split, or they walk into the basement of a cave, and then they come back up and they're kind of passing you. That's another maybe good opening where you can initiate the conversation. So it should be strategic, right? It's not like you're trying to sell them a bad house, but you're trying to have a conversation with them. So it's really important to ask the right questions. And this is something that, frankly, the only way to know what questions to ask is to practice them. But beforehand, you can visualize it. You could chat. You could role play with another agent. You could actually role play with ChatGPT. So you can practice these before you do it. But on the job, you're going to learn which questions seem to kind of be the best bang for your buck. Some intro ones, how long you've been shopping for a home, sparks the conversation, right? Are you looking for a specific home or area, or is the area more important to you? You're going to learn a lot. You know, my family members, my niece lives in this school district, and you know, I want my daughter to go to school with them. No, I'm open to lots of areas, but I'm very specific on the style of home. That question you're going to learn a lot from. If everything kind of goes the way you want it to, what's your ideal timeline on closing on a house? Maybe there's a lease involved, and you're going to learn some information on that. Maybe their living situation is peachy and they're in no rush whatsoever. You know, there's, you know, Maybe they're, not real buyers. They're just spinning wheels. But whatever it might be, you're going to ask questions. Joe, do you currently own or are you renting? So you're going to get information on whether or not they own. And now your future questions are going to be a lot different if they own a house. What's a follow-up question if they say they own? Yeah. And instead of saying the word need, because maybe they'll take that a little threatening, would you be looking to sell the house in order to buy, or would you be looking to buy first? Something like that, Are you familiar with the neighborhood? So questions just to get a conversation. Nothing's going to go exactly as planned, but you're going to hopefully ask the right questions. We're going to get some information. And at that point, just be a human being, just have a conversation. Do you have any must-haves or deal breakers? People kind of like sharing what their deal breakers are, and I absolutely need a basement, whatever it might be. So that seems to get good feedback when you talk about that. What are your thoughts on this home? That's going to be a little further in the conversation as they see most of the house. Talk about a pattern interrupt. How's your real estate experience been so far? No one's asked that question before. They might not even know how to answer it, but it kind of is that pattern interrupt.
That's like a roundabout way of asking if they're working with an agent.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to see addressed or changed in this property? Now you're going to start to gauge whether or not they see themselves liking this house and potentially making an offer.
Back to was pattern destruction, what we
A pattern interrupt?
interrupt, that's different than what they might expect to hear. So what do you like about the house, right? That's well, most agents don't do anything. But that's closer. What do you wish was different in this house? And now you have a real answer. So do you like the house? Yeah, it was nice. Doesn't do you any good. What do you wish was different? Wish was on a different block. That house next door is like, and sometimes that's enough to keep them from buying a house.
That'll be a deal breaker, yeah.
It'd be a deal breaker for me.
There's three
There's
dilapidated ice cream trucks on the side of the house.
Yeah, bad neighbors is the one thing I can't. I can make my house do anything different except bad neighbors. I got a good one. Oh, I wish the kitchen was bigger. How would you handle that? Well, how could you make that work? If you won this house on a lottery, how would you work the kitchen? Well, I think what I'd do is I'd actually get rid of some of the cabinets and maybe have this used this other, put some in the dining room. I don't know, whatever. They're really working themselves through the problem. And that's the whole goal. When you're working with a buyer or anybody, and you're having that conversation, it is a little bit of a pickleball match. They say this, I say that, I say that. So by moving the conversation where you want to, which is addressing that concern, the kitchen's too small. It's not too small, it's a normal kitchen. Your house in Florida does a kitchen that size. I don't know, I'm gonna prove to you I don't like that kitchen by not buying the house, right? Whereas, well, if you won the house in a lottery, and I'll give you it's only a bottle of wine today, but if you did win this house in a lottery, how would you work through this smaller kitchen and solve the problem? Have them solve it. Yeah, I guess I don't know, I guess, I probably wouldn't have a table in here, like we can eat lunch at the dining room. Oh, that would work too. And if you can get them to do it, they like you better. They're it's same as they. I spent the whole time, talking about myself. They were great. It makes people like you more if they get to control a conversation.
Yeah, so suggest.
Yeah.
What you could do for it, you mean doing there, like,
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of not saying, you could just take this wall down and then you have this nice big kitchen. Because I'm about to spend $6.99 on a house with an old roof. And I gotta take walls down too. Maybe this house just doesn't work. How would you handle, you mentioned you don't love the size of the kitchen. How might you handle that in the future if you did own this house? I think, my uncle's in construction. I could probably get him to help me take this wall down. Patching the floor. Well, I'd probably make it a really big kitchen. Yeah, it would. And I have the den. I could even use that as a dining room. They just solved the problem without me ever doing anything but asking questions.
Another effective thing is, it seems like, this house checks off quite a few boxes. What would be the things you need to do immediately to move in? And what's some of your, 3 to 5 year plans? Now, all of a sudden, they are starting to picture, okay, I just have to do a few things. and then I can knock down this wall 3 to 5 years from now. So you're letting them think it out, to Joseph's point.
It looks a lot more like a Columbo episode, right? One more thing, but he's always just asking questions, right? And people keep talking and then they admit to the murder without realizing it or whatever.
Wait,
And it's like psychiatry. It's Tony Soprano sitting in the chair, and Dr. Milky's just asking him questions, and like that's it. That's what it was.
and eventually, if you're doing all these things effective, again, not 10 out of 10, but maybe 3 out of 10, what you're going to notice is like a switch where there's total rapport and it's just a natural conversation. And at that point, you know that you're in a position where you can hopefully set the tone to work with them. But they're guarded until they're not. And it's a really good feeling. And I mentioned this before in other sales meetings. There's no better feeling than a complete stranger that's totally guarded. And then halfway through the tour, you're asking these questions. And then it just, they lean in and it's just a regular conversation, and they're no longer guarded. They're actually interested in what you have to say. And you know you have them. You know, it's a great feeling. So again, 2, 3 out of 10 is a good batting average. A couple other questions. Are you looking at any other homes today? Do you have any feedback or suggestions in improving my open house experience? I always like that one. On a scale from 1 to 10, how interested are you in this property, right? At the end of the day, you want to ask them, do you want to make an offer, right? Would you like to make an offer on the house? I could represent you. Would you like to keep you updated on similar listings? And there's obviously lots of questions you could ask, but you know, you have to practice these questions and have them in your mental bank in order to ask them. All right, so asking the right questions will allow you to learn more about them and help guide you on what you should be focusing on in hopes to close for an appointment. So the more you know, the better questions you could ask and what you know you should focus in on. Based on what they say, you'll respond and know what to say next, and your responses at this point should provide value. That's obvious, right? So maybe the guest shared that they own a home and they need to sell. It was great meeting you today. One of the ways I can help you is to take a quick 15-minute tour of your home, and that'll give me everything I need to prepare a price trend analysis of your home, as well as a marketing plan that addresses your timeline of the buy and sell. Do you have some time after the open house, unless weekdays are better? Just go all in and ask for the appointment. Don't be afraid. What's the worst they're going to say? No, not at this time. And then what might I do it if they say that? No, I'm not interested in doing it at this time. What would be your response? That's, yeah, close for a second time, Lorraine. Absolutely. When would be a better time? But let's say they're just, they're not having it. You want to set an expectation for a future follow-up.
Follow up within a couple of months or so.
Yeah, so what I like to do is, it sounds like this home might not work for you because they told me they want to make an offer. I still love to share a little bit about, what it might have sold for once it goes on the contract. Also, I ask questions, maybe I know what they're looking for. So now I know maybe they're not so interested in me helping them on the sales side. So I might focus in on the inventory, right? If I do have any homes that pop up in this immediate area, would you be interested in hearing about them, right? Or whatever you could do to set the tone of getting them to agree to a future connection. Does that make sense? I think I forgot to put the setup, but basically somebody might be interested in buying, but they have a lot of flexibility with their current living situation. So that's a great position to be in. It gives you flexibility. Have you done an affordability assessment and pre-approval yet? So that way you're ready to jump on the right home when it hits the market. So maybe they say no, they didn't do the pre-approval yet. You could offer your gold service provider for financing. Lorraine, you're pretty good at that. Yeah, you seem to have a pretty good track record of your buyers going to your lenders. In either event, yes or no, do you have time Monday around lunchtime, or is Tuesday evening better for a quick call? I'd love to learn exactly what you're looking for. Me or my office may already know of some homes that aren't on the market yet. So dangle that carrot on how you might have some off-market properties, and set the tone of a quick conversation during a lunch hour or an evening. Extra value add, you can encourage them to review the top 5 things buyers can do to get their offer accepted. The only way you can refer to that is if it's actually in your packet. So you'll have to create a flyer for that. Any questions on any of that? Yeah.
You sign in the beginning, how do you show this?
Most do. If they run out of the house on the disclosure.
Set up trip line.
So if it's a park view type house, it might be complicated to build any report. You're literally just herding cats. And we've dealt with that post-COVID where, I mean, it was impossible to build any report with anybody. It was just, you were literally just like yeah, just, a cruise director, tour guide. So figure out how that might look if you think it's going to be an absolute mob scene. And in those cases, maybe you have two agents and one does a sign-in sheet in the beginning, just a matter of housekeeping. So typically I don't like to do it this way, but as a matter of housekeeping, we do have a long line and I want to provide a really good experience for you and get you into the house as soon as possible. So I'm gonna have you sign in before we enter the house, and then Patty's gonna be inside to just go over the expectations during the tour. And maybe you have to do it differently on a house like that. So you'll usually have an idea if it's gonna be one of those insane open houses, but you might have to adapt your strategy in those situations. But the way I just described it, could that be where somebody still sees like, oh, this is different? And they actually sign in outside before they walk in the door? So just an idea. All right, let's recap. So benefits of open houses, it's structured, right? It's really easy to just get a system in place and just duplicate it over and over and over again. It's easily trackable, right? We talk about batting averages. If you have 10 guests and you built rapport and you're able to secure one appointment from it and two others, you got an agreement of a future connection, you could track all that stuff. It's repeatable, right? It's a proven system. Once you get your system in place, it's just repeatable. It's easily learned, right? It's somewhat straightforward, the steps. You got to plan out your steps and get all your ducks in a row, but it's somewhat simple. Meets buyers' expectations. So, it allows buyers to see a house they want to see relatively easy. Start early. So once it's scheduled, all those before steps that are in the playbook you should be doing. Has a storefront approach. We talked about that already. Every contact matters. Nosy neighbors are good neighbors. Parents shopping for their kids when the kids don't even know the parents are going to an open house. It's still a person that has a pulse, and you could build rapport and maybe get something out of it. Quality data collection for the most part. They provide good contact information on the open house sign-in sheets. Customized follow-up, so every single person could get a customized follow-up where you're actually writing notes as they leave, which based on the conversation you had, and actually provide a customized message on your follow-up. You could do it with team members, adding two people outside, especially if you're doing 2 or 3 a week. Maybe team up with someone and do it with them. Provides value as a listing agent, and it allows you to grow your database much quicker than other sources. Before steps, so prospect for appointments, attract attendees to open houses, market yourself and the home, and grow your database. The during steps, we already talked about that. Book consultations, try to get an appointment. And then after, you're going to continue to secure consultation appointments, follow up with them. And as you grow your database and you get these attendees, maybe 7 out of 10, you don't build that rapport and you don't really have that feeling that they're going to work with you, but you're going to have their contact information where, twice a week, maybe you follow up with all your open house guests. And it's just like a cycle, and, 2 weeks ago, open house, I'm going to reach out to on Thursday. 1 week ago, open house, I'm going to reach out on Friday. And I'm just going to kind of keep going and reaching out to those people and constantly following up. During steps, we kind of went over this in detail, but use your display books, your display to book appointments, use multiple methods of signing in, right? You could do the My Weichert sign-in app. You could do the rating sheets, which I like a lot. You could do QR codes. You could get creative with that. And then your questions, I think your opening dialogue and your questions, you should give it a lot of thought on what you want that tour to look like and have messaging to deliver those expectations of what that tour is going to be. So after steps, it's kind of where the magic happens. Make sure your open house campaign is turned on. Use my whiteboard. Use those tools. Same day follow-ups are really preferred. You know, we talked about, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, Maria's got text templates in her notes. So it is an easy way to do those same day follow-ups. And then you can add to it and customize a little bit based on your conversations. And every conversation you have or every follow-up, put it into my whiteboard so you have a tracker on all the times you followed up, how many connections you made, what the conversation was, and just be consistent. So open houses can be your most valuable appointment setting machine, but you do need to approach it with that mindset. Do things on purpose and try to close for an appointment on every single guest. That should be your primary focus, is close for an appointment on every single guest. And I think if you're doing all this stuff with the mentality of closing for that appointment, you're doing your seller a service too, because it's your job to build as much rapport as possible. I think Joseph mentioned, you're not going to convince someone to buy a house based on features, right? They're going to kind of decide whether or not to or not. So be extremely likable, because you're going to, it's going to be easier for them to make those offers on agents that they like, and you're going to learn something from them. So your mentality, everyone that walks in that door, is to close for an appointment. That should be your main focus. And then how do we get there? Use all these tools that we went over today. Anyone know who Chris Grosser is? Me neither. So Google it. But there's a quote I liked. Opportunities don't happen, you create them, right? Those opportunities are not going to just show up on your lap. An open house guest is not going to walk in and say, I have a house to sell. Can you help me with it? You got to provide value. You got to create those opportunities. And then you'll be in a position where you can act on it. Anybody have anything to add? Needs, wants, haves?
I need 2 bedroom, 1 car.
There's one in Farmingdale. Text Maria.
25, yeah, but they got it going.
All right, everybody. Have a great week. Reach out to Joseph or I if you need us.